Okay, so I thought you'd appreciate this one. Tonight I'm going to make a Genoise sponge. So Genoise sponge is a little bit different to a normal sponge cake. It's very, very light, it's very, very airy. It's not done with self-raising flour, it's done with plain flour, and basically the rise in it, so the height and the size of it is all given to the air that you put into the mixture at the beginning, so not through the flour and not through the sort of the gluten rise. Really simple recipe. I believe it's named after Italian town, I think, but long time since I researched. Anyway, really basic recipe. This is what you're going to need. Okay, so first things first, we're going to need 4 eggs. We're going to use 125 grams of plain flour and 125 grams of caster sugar. Now, again, a bit different to normal. We're going to have ourselves a mixing bowl. We're going to mix the eggs and the sugar, and we're going to mix that for about 7 minutes until we almost got meringue style before we sift the flour. More on that later, and fold it in. A couple of tins here. So I've got a 20 centimetre really deep tin, and I've got a slightly shallower tin, which is 23 centimetres. So you can use either, it just depends on the preference. And of course, most importantly, we're going to need ourselves a can of Thatcher's Haze to drink as we go through the mixture. So we'll get started. Okay, so what I should have said very quickly is make sure you preheat your oven to 180 degrees, because you need to get your sponge into a hot oven. If you put it into a cold onion, it's going to be fucked, basically. There's various ways of doing this. Now, I was always taught when I was taught as a chef to separate the egg whites and the egg yolks and do the egg whites and the sugar together, and to do it basically just straight in a bowl. I've actually gone more to slight changes as I've got older, and I actually put the yolks and the whites of the bowl together and with the sugar. Now apparently, and I've never done this, but I might try this evening, if you put it over a pan of simmering water, it kind of starts to cook it up a little bit as you go, and that's supposed to help get the air in. So I might try that this evening, see how we go. Okay, so I've got my mixer, because I don't want an electric mixer, because you have to mix it for about 7 minutes. So definitely use an electric mixer. Do not do it by hand. I repeat, do not do this by hand. I've got my bowl or my pan of water, which I'm about to bring to simmer. Not too hot, just simmer, nice low heat. I'm using a plastic bowl because it's the only one I've got big enough to really, because the mixture is going to expand, and then I've got to fold in the flour. So be really, really careful if using a plastic bowl over the heat. It doesn't melt. I know somebody that put something like salmon onto a hot plate the other day, and its wrapper and the whole plastic melted. Disaster. So be really careful of that. I've got my sugar. So basically, I'm just going to show what I'm going to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck my sugar into here, just like that. So all the caster sugar is going to go in. That's it. I'm going to stick that on top of the pan, and I'm going to start whisking it. I'm just going to keep whisking it for about 7 minutes. So I'll come back to you in 7 minutes so you can have a look and see what it looks like, because I need to keep it moving so I won't be able to film at the same time. So I'm literally just mixing the hell out of this, and well, so we're going to want all these bubbles. The bubbles are good because what we want to do is get loads and loads of air into the mixture, because that's what's going to make it rise, that's what's going to keep it nice and high. So keep it moving, keep it going. Like I say, about 7 minutes, and you just got to keep going until it's really stiff and it holds itself, and I'll show you the consistency when I get there in a sec. Okay, so we're about 4.5 minutes in now. It's getting nice and thick. So yeah, we just keep going for another 3 or 4 minutes and get it, like I say, really, really thick and ready to fold in the flour. Okay, so you should have a really nice, light, fluffy mixture now. Just hold itself, and I'll get a spoon and show you what it will. Consistency-wise, you've got to be really careful now. So consistency-wise, you can see it's nice, and so it just holds the back of the spoon. It's not like thin, and that's just sugar and eggs at the moment, so it's not got flour in. But this is the bit you need to be really careful, because we now need to get the flour in there, but keep the air in. So I'm going to show you how to fold the flour in. Okay, so again, 2 ways you can do this. You're going to need your sieve, because normally what you do is you just sieve the flour over the top of the bowl and fold it in. I've only got one hand, so what I'm going to do is just sieve the flour into another bowl, because obviously I'm filming, so I've got my hands, which is a bit shit really. Okay, so to fold the flour, I've only got one hand, so I'm going to do it with a different bowl so I can show you. Basically, what you're going to do to sieve the flour is with your bowl, and flip it around. You're going to put some flour in. What you're going to do is you're going to cut the mixture and sweep and cut and sweep and cut and sweep, constantly moving the bowl around as you do it. So we'll cut and sweep, and that's what we're going to do with our mixture over here. Is we're going to very gently, we're going to just cut through the middle of it like that, folding the flour from this side and moving the bowl at the same time, and then cut and sweep and cut and sweep and cut and sweep until it's all mixed in. Really important. One really important thing, make sure you keep yourself hydrated, because obviously you're in a very hot kitchen, so that's an important aspect, to keep yourself hydrated. So I've got about a third of my flour, and I'm going to cut and sweep, cut and sweep, cut and sweep, basically. I'm just going to constantly do it. I'm going to need my other hand, so I'm going to have to stop recording. You just do that and really try and make sure that you keep the air in the mixture. Don't batter it, don't stir it. You're folding, not stirring. It's a big difference. Okay, so I've got all my flour in. It's really important, once again, just because you're cutting and sweeping, make sure you don't have any pockets of flour inside. So if you get caught up in the air pockets, you need to make sure you've got through that. You can see the mix is still quite light. See, it's still quite light and fluffy. Look at that. That's a beautiful consistency. Look at that. That's lovely. You can see there's no lumps of flour in here, really. Well, there isn't at all, which is perfect. So that's exactly what we want. And then we're ready to prep our tin. So I'm going to be using a deep tin, because I'm confident that this is a light enough mixture that it's going to really rise up quite high, cook in the middle, and I'm going to be able to cut it into 4 sections. I'm going to lightly grease this, lightly grease the sides, and get it in the oven. Okay, so I've greased my tin. Different people like to grease with different stuff. Some people use like a stalk, which I've got over here, some butter. Some people even use oil. Personally, I like to use the body fat of a child. I find the innocence of child fat really lubricates the tin quite well. So that's what I like to use. Anyway, so I've got my mixture in here. All I've done is I've put it in. I've just spooned it in very, very gently. Now quickly, if you try a little bit of your mixture, if you just try a little bit, you're going to see it's really foamy, like almost like a mousse. Let's make a good thing on that. So it's like a mousse. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's light, it's fluffy, it's really, really tasty. And what I'm going to do with my tin, I'm going to give it a little gentle tap. See how wobbly that is. Look at that, look at that. It's like almost like I say, a mousse. So I'm just going to give it that little wobble. Just make sure it's level. Make sure there's no bits inside. Just so it's not missing any bits. Cool. I'm going to pick up my tin. Very careful to your loose bottom. I'm going to put it in a slightly bigger tin, just in case it does cook right up over the top. I'm going to stick that in the oven. Now, really, really careful. Really important, this bit. What we need to make sure we do, and I've got my oven on 180, is I open that door, I get that in as quick as possible so I don't lose too much heat, and I shut the door very, very gently, because if you slam the door, bang, you knock all the air out of your cake mixture. So here's how we do it. So open it very gently, not losing too much heat. Get the cake in nice and in the centre, just like there, see? And then what we're going to do is we're just going to close it very gently. And it might seem weird, but the harder you close the door, the more air you're going to knock out your cake. 25 minutes, so you're going to leave that in there now for 20 to 25 minutes. You really don't want to be checking it too much, because again, every time you open the door, you lose the heat, you knock the air out of the cake. So about 20-25 minutes. And again, remember that important rule. It's very hot in the kitchen, it's very hard work. Make sure you stay hydrated. So that's an important rule. Really hydrated whenever you cook. See you in 20 minutes. Okay, so it's been in now for 25 minutes. The problem with the Genoise sponge is if I open the oven and it's not cooked, I'll knock the air out of it and it'll go flat. So I kind of just have to take the risk and hope it's cooked, really. If you're lucky, you'll be able to see through. I can't see bugger all because our light doesn't work, so I'm just going to have to take the risk and hope for the best. So in truth, we'll open it gently. Shit. Take it out. We'll have a quick look, and actually it's not too bad. It's not risen as much as I would have liked. So I'm going to just stick a little probe just into the middle of it, just to check the inside's cooked. Yeah, that's clean. So that's cooked, and that's going to continue to cook now, probably for another 5 minutes or so. It's just going to continue to cook. I'm just going to leave it and just let it carry on a couple of minutes, and then I'll take it out. Okay, but as I've been saying the whole way along, remember the most important thing, it's a hot kitchen, it's a warm kitchen, you've got to keep yourself hydrated. So we're just going to do that whilst we wait for the cake to cool a little bit so we can get it out of the pan. See you in 5. Okay, so I'm going to get it out now. I'm just going to put it on the board on the edge, I'm going to stick that on top, and I'm going to, trouble is these bloody gloves are a bit hard and heavy, so I'm just going to drop the damn thing. Still a little bit hot, but I want to get it out hot because it's going to be more pliable, should we say. There we go. Top off it as quick as I can. Get stuck. So it's just a little bit sticky. There we go, there we go. And like I said earlier about the fat, you can see just here, see, this is where there's been a little bit of flour still still stuck on it, but it's a perfect sponge. Look at that, it's a little bit of flour just there. Other than that's perfect. We're going to be able to get a good 2 cuts out of that when that cools. We're going to leave it there now on the side. 15. Okay, so we've got our sponge, we've got our Genoise sponge. Now what we have to do is cut it into 3. Various options for this. Some people like to use like a knife like this, like a nice big knife. It's fine as long as it's sharp. Personally, I tend to like to use a big carving knife, but personally I tend to prefer to use a bread knife because as long as you saw it, you really get a nice edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the top first. So we're going to go into thirds on this one, I think. And the important thing is keep it nice and even all the way around. I'm going to use the length of the knife to cut through. You can just sort of turn and kind of centre a little bit. Should be right, I think. Try and slide the top off. Not too bad. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise we were filming. So you can see now I've got this lovely soft kind of perfect cake texture. And what we're going to do is cut this straight through the middle here. So again, just using the length of the knife, just gently saw through. And personally, I like to kind of spin it and just kind of follow that line really all the way through. It's personal preference, but that's the way I like to do it. It's nice and gently so you don't break the cake. Just again using the full length of that knife to really cut through. Obviously watching your fingers. Here we are, we're nearly back to the beginning. Upload that. Sorry, you can upload that and I'll finish it. Okay, and hopefully, with a little bit of luck, if we've done this right. Okay, it feels like we've gone all the way through. It feels loose. If we've done it right, we should be able to just pick up the next layer, just like that, and there we go. 3 layers of cake. And now I can dress that side, and dress that side, and make one big Genoise sponge. Normally I would do this with like strawberries and like a buttercream or real cream because it's really summery light cake, but this one's actually for my son's 5th birthday, so it's going to be jam, it's going to be icing, and it's going to be made. Brother, it's caught in the crossfire. It's caught in the crossfire.